Broadcasting from the campus of Salisbury University, this is WSDL Ocean City, NPR News Talk 90.7, putting Delmarva first. It's time for Delmarva Today with your host, Don Rush.
It's called Headquarters Live, and many hope it's just another step in the revitalization of downtown Salisbury. Welcome to Delmarva Today. This is Don Rush. The revitalization of downtown has been on the agenda of the Salisbury City Council for years. Efforts have ranged from opening and closing the plaza to plans for new facades. But there may be something more substantial happening with new businesses moving to the area in the initiation of Third Friday that brings residents to the downtown area. Latest is Headquarters Live at the old Fire Station 16, and we have the two partners in this venture with us in the studio, Jim Bowerly and Brad Gellis. Welcome to the program, first of all.
Thanks for having us. Thank you.
Well, let me ask you this. How did you guys figure out that this is what you wanted to do? What was the earliest conception that, well, maybe this is what you want to do? Because I know there's been a lot of discussion about the fate of the fire station, lots of political battles. What was your, how did this happen? Brad?
It was a marathon, not a sprint. So right around 2008 is when the fire company moved out of its original headquarters into the building on Cypress Street. And since that time, the city has made efforts to surplus the property. So it's been in process, if you will, for a number of years, ever since 2008. The concept of a venue, of a performing arts and music venue, and essentially a community hall, if you will, has been one that the community spoke out and said, this is what we want. So us as a respondent to the city's RFP, we essentially have provided what the community and citizens have said, this is what we want. And so we partnered with Jim Byerly. He's got an extensive background in this type of venue, and we think it's built for success.
How did the two of you, who came up with the idea first to have this sort of Headquarters Live with very specific plans? I mean, because obviously we've had this general discussion going on for some. Anyone take credit for it?
Well, obviously I kind of have been given a task to kind of fulfill the vision that Brad and Joey and Chris Gilkerson have had for quite some time. A friend of a friend actually had told me that these guys were thinking or contemplating this type of use, and that they were looking for somebody that may have had a resume similar to mine that had done these types of venues. And we met. I came down to the site and I saw, this beautiful building, but I also saw next door to it 750 parking spaces for free after 5 o'clock. And in the history of my life doing this, I have never had parking like that with a venue, so close to it. So there's a formula there that is built for success just with the parking alone. Mm-hmm. is such a neat thing. So we met, and what was initially kind of going to be more of a consulting kind of thing really evolved into me jumping kind of both feet into this and kind of fulfilling again their vision of a music venue, but also more of a flex space that nonprofits and the community as a whole can use. And it's already happening. We already have a church using the facility. We already have 3 nonprofits that have rented the facility next month. And then together with that, my job is then to bring in touring entertainment that will be kind of the glue that kind of keeps all of this together.
Now, Jim, so now you're talking about your own resume. Tell us a little bit about what you've been doing in terms of bringing in acts, because as I sort of went through and sort of surfed the net and so on, it's clear that you're involved with a lot of bringing a lot of acts.
I've been at it for about over 30 years. I started back at the Bottle and Cork many years ago, and started booking entertainment there when I was about 18 or 19, and that evolved into helping the then owners of the Stone Balloon in Newark, Delaware, which evolved into me actually buying that many years later. I've actually had that property for about 20 years and had, all kinds of success there with bringing in touring entertainment. And so I've been, in relationships, which actually kind of leads to a neat story. The show that we're going to do on Wednesday is Johnny Neal from Nashville. He's originally from Wilmington. It's with Ed Shockley, who's from Lewis, Delaware. Johnny played extensively with the Allman Brothers, won a Grammy with those guys for Lifetime Achievement Award. 32 years ago, Johnny Neal, Ed Shockley, myself, and the lighting and sound company that we're using, the first light rig I ever rented 30 some years ago was from Scott Humphrey, who's doing the lighting for the show on Wednesday. So 30 some years ago, the same people were together doing shows.
A reunion.
And I didn't really actually plan it that way, but it's kind of how it evolved.
Yeah.
So and are you going to have like acts like on a regular basis? What's the scheduling look like?
Well, it's something that we got to kind of walk to before we run.
Right.
And initially, I think, we're going to have probably, 4 or 5 shows this month, leading into hopefully having the building being occupied and active 20 to 25 days a month. Ideally, having, somewhere between 10 and 15 shows of those 20 some days, intermingling the nonprofit and just renting the facility. But as an example, we have the show on Wednesday. We have a show Friday with a band called
Bruce
Life in Paris, and they're from Philadelphia. And first show is going to be at 6. We want to try to capture the audience that is going to be in town for the third Friday, and have them be able to come in. It's a free show, and there'll be 2 sets after that. So there's kind of a semi-private event happening on Wednesday for all the people and supporters to come in and see the facility, and then we open to the public on Friday.
Are you, by the way, ultimately, then are you going to have, so it's like every Friday, Saturday, or whatever it is, there's going to be some kind of show going on? Is that how you're planning on doing it?
We're going to attack Fridays initially and try to have something every Friday, and really try to have it kind of a dual kind of event on Friday where we can capture the business community right after work to come in and see a 6 o'clock set. And then later on that evening, 2 shows probably later on that evening for possibly a younger audience.
So Brad, what describe, by the way, the structure for us, because some people have not necessarily seen it. And what convinced you that this works in terms as a venue for this kind of business?
The building is three structures, or three stories. It sits on maybe a quarter acre. I mean, the lot's not that big, maybe half acre. It's approximately 12,000 square feet. Jim is utilizing the outside portion, the basement, and also the main level. We've installed 3 additional garage doors, so it creates the ability for an inside and outside venue. It is becoming the anchor of downtown, and we're pretty excited about the fact that this can become a place where everyone and anyone can gather, and whether it's for a private event or for a public event, it's right there, ready to go. So I mean, again, the structure is built just like no other. I mean, it is 5 courses of brick, going through those 3, installing those 3 garage doors. Actually 4 courses of brick, built in 1935. I mean, it's just an unbelievable structure, and it's now in its second life.
By the way, in revamping it, was there any particular problems you run into with a building that is that old?
Well, I mean, it's very simple construction. I mean, it's brick, mortar, concrete. We did revitalize every single building system you can think of, to go from essentially a place where fire trucks were stored, and now it's a place of assembly. And in order to do those 2 polar opposite uses, you have to install a significant amount of building systems, from ADA accessibility to sprinkler systems to new heating and cooling, and especially all of the other specialty fixtures that go in for the specific use for Headquarters Live.
By the way, is there going to be any indication once you get this done? Is there going to be any indication from the building that this was an old firehouse? I mean, what are you planning on keeping anything externally or even internally?
Well, I think we're bound by the historic district, so we spent a considerable amount of time going through those approvals. So if you look at the building and you drive by, it's our intention that the historic integrity and the historic significance is maintained. It's in our interest and also the community's interest to keep this looking like essentially an old firehouse. And we think we've done that. Of course, it's up for an opinion, as always. But absolutely. I think over time, as the space becomes its own identity, And with the community's influence and with Jim's influence, it will have its second identity and its second life in that way.
By the way, what kind of elements are going to be remaining that will identify it as an old firehouse? What elements are you keeping?
Well, I think that really, as Brad is saying, it's really about the exterior. In the interior, it really, we took over if you can picture where fire trucks were stored, it's a big
right,
open
an empty
space.
Place, right?
And then when there's 4 doors around it, there's not a whole lot of.
Are there any any places for the fire folks that were originally there to stay? I mean, is that all being taken out?
That was all on the second floor. So the dorms and offices, all that was on the actually it's called the third floor, but it's on the upper level.
So,
Okay.
yeah, so we're not actually occupying that space. So to answer your question, it's a big open room with a lot of doors. So there's not a lot of areas to decorate, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that, as you pass through the building and you see the doors themselves are standard firehouse doors.
Yep.
Right.
I think that really, speaks to what it was and what it's about going to be.
By the way, I have to ask you. I mean, when we think about firehouses, we think about a pole. Are you guys keeping that at all, or is it even there?
Well, the whole irony of the thing is the pole was taken out maybe decades ago.
Okay.
They needed the Salisbury Fire Department needed an additional office space, and because of that, they took out the pole.
So when I go, I won't be able to see one, I guess.
No.
And there will not be any pole dancing, if that's what
Now, see, I didn't raise. Is that a new venue? Is that now? I want to move to something that we're talking about, which of course is the revitalization of downtown. And I ran across a quote, for instance, for Mayor Jim Ireton, who basically says the momentum is ours and we're seizing it and we savor the investment and we savor this victory. Memo Derricker, who's president of the Salisbury Area Chamber of Commerce, also with Salisbury University's Purdue School of Business, said this is a part of the rejuvenation of downtown. This is one more step toward making downtown the place to be. Brad, you've been looking at this a long time. How do you see this fitting into revitalization? And it takes us back a little because I've been here about 10 years,
Sure.
and they've been talking about revitalization a lot, including creating facades, creating sort of a silver bullet with a major anchor, and you walk around and it looks very similar to what it's been at least over the last 10 years. How do you see all this fitting together?
It's probably a longer story than 10 minutes, but if you're allowing me to ramble, I will.
Sure, no, go ahead.
The story of downtown Salisbury is unlike no other. Excuse me, it is like every story in middle or small America. We left our urban cores, and that was specifically because of malls, and that was how we conducted our retail shopping. And so this progression of the evolution of downtown Salisbury has been happening actually ever since the Salisbury Mall, so back in the 50s.
Right.
So this rejuvenation period, if you will, or revitalization has been happening, quote unquote, for 50 years. But now I think it's reached a pivotal point where we can identify with how we're going to redevelop downtown Salisbury. And that's not through your core retail. That's through specialty shops. That's through establishments such as bars and restaurants and attractions. So it's not your old downtown anymore. You're not going to see a department store in downtown Salisbury, but what you are going to see is a destination with over 10 establishments. So if you want to go out and you need a specialty item for a birthday gift or a special occasion, you can go to Coons or you can go to Angelo's. And if you need a pizza to take home, you can go to Maya Bella's. And at the same time, you can have your pick of the litter when it comes to establishments to partake in. If there's a place where you go for happy hour at either Brick Room, Mojo's, Market Street, or you have sushi at Sushi Day Kampai or Echelon. It's a place where you can go and have happy hour and then go watch a live show and then go home. Or you could get some small retail boutique specialty shopping done, go out for dinner and go home. Salisbury is a destination. There's no other place in Wicomico County that has over 10 establishments to either shop or to eat or drink within walking distance. So if that's a niche, that is exactly what we're all about.
Because I think I ran across a quote from you talking about that they're putting base runners on. A decade ago, we as a community were consistently going after the Grand Slam, going after the home run. Before we know it, now we're going after the small home runs, the small base runnings. Yeah. Is the idea, because the reason why I raise this question of this quote is because I know I've talked, for instance, the mayor of Berlin, and one of the discussions, one of the things that he said about his revitalization was that they created an anchor first, which was the hotel, and then everything else kind of seemed to flow from that. I mean, there were a lot of also interaction in terms of local businesses. This seems, I mean, and this has been described as sort of an anchor. How does that fit in with that model? Are you just trying to create a lot of small businesses, which then maybe will provide an area for the anchor, or do you see the Headquarters Live as an anchor that will now begin to pull in even more? I mean, how do you?
I think there's no perfect solution. There's no template for any type of revitalization downtown. Headquarters Live and Jim are in a unique position to where the community actually said that we want this. He's never had that in his career with a music venue. And so all the infrastructure is there ready to be utilized. So that has the ability to become an anchor. But Salisbury has, and with the downtown stakeholders have said, we're going to give this a shot. And we're doing that. I learned when Kansas City Royals won the World Series, somebody was telling me that they play small ball. I'd never heard that before. And I'm like, what does that mean? And it basically means, well, they get base runners on. And I thought it was a great analogy for what we're doing in Salisbury. And that's no longer going after the Grand Slam. It's simply going for the base hit. And before you know it, we're gonna get some runs in. And that's happening. I mean, if you look at New Year's Eve with thousands of people downtown Salisbury in this past 2 years, knock on wood, the weather was great. And if you look at the third Fridays and the first Saturdays that are coming, Salisbury is standing up and saying, we are the capital of the Eastern Shore, and we're here to be inspirational and to lead.
No, because one of the things that struck me, and I've had a number of discussions over the years about revitalization, and one of the comparisons we often make here is comparison between the mall on the one hand, which is to the north, right, and downtown. And one of the things that you can do is if you overlay the map of the mall on downtown, you find that you actually walk further distances in the mall than you would in the downtown area. Even though when you're in the downtown area, you get this feeling like you're actually walking further places, that the downtown is kind of chopped up, as it were. How do you overcome that? I mean, that's sort of like one of the basic geographical
living well. I mean, one of the downtown stakeholders is PRMC, and their motto right now is live well. So in today's day and age, it is about health, and it is about getting outside and being active. And downtowns are a part of that experience. So you are 100% accurate. If you park your car and you go to, you're one of the 300,000 visitors at the library, then you're walking a shorter distance than you would be if you parked in the mall. And there is a reason if you go to a website called deadmalls.com, they haven't built a single mall such as the center of Salisbury since the early 90s.
That's interesting.
That concept has really not begun. It's in its third generation now, and it looks more like kind of like the Annapolis Town Center, where it's an outside place. So Salisbury is its own. We're recreating downtown into a destination, and Headquarters Live has the potential to be an anchor for that destination.
Because one of the things, by the way, now, Jim, in terms of your experience at various venues, I mean, you have obviously the Modern Cork. What kind of venues do you think have been the most successful in terms of attracting, obviously, an audience for what you're doing, but also in how it impacts like the surrounding businesses?
Well, I think what Headquarters Live is going to provide is an ability for a diverse audience to experience downtown. We're going to do many different styles of music to attract many different types of people. And I think, and I spoke about it earlier, the parking opportunity is huge. In Newark, I had zero parking at Stone Balloon. We had all kinds of municipal parking around us, but you couldn't see it from the street. It was behind the buildings, and people would always complain, I can't get parked. The beauty of this, you can't miss that parking garage. It's right there. And the fact that it's so ample, it's right there, it's next door. Park your car, go have dinner, come to a show, go from work to a show to go out to dinner. That's what we envision with Headquarters Live.
But do you think that there seems to be need to be some kind of upgrade in terms of the facade of downtown area, and in particular the area that you're talking about, that needs to seem to be more inviting or seem to be more cohesive?
Well, I think Brad, is speaking to the singles here. I think that I was actually taken. I'm relatively new to Salisbury in terms of the downtown experience, and been really here immersed in it since May, and I'm taken in such a positive way by the energy, by the vision, by the just overall positive nature of everybody that I run into. In walking from Headquarters Live to Brad's office, just running into people and the excitement about what we're trying to pull off here, and it's quite experimental. I mean, let's face it. People are saying what's going to be. That room's going to tell us what it's going to be. We're going to try different kinds of music. We're going to see what succeeds and what fails, from bluegrass to jazz to rock to having a church use the facility. I think that's what is so important, that we are open to any type of use, but at the core of it, there's a stage, and music is going to be the lifeblood of it.
Hmm. So now I know there's been some discussion going beyond just the immediate parking lot, the discussion of filling in some of the old parking lots that were actually owned by the city. If they fill that in, would that have any real impact on you?
I think knowing some of the plans that Harkins and the city are talking with they're talking about a mixed-use development. So they're talking about multifamily, and they're also talking about potentially specialty retail and office. And in having that synergy of people being in one spot and having the more activity we can have in one central area, quite honestly, the lower the crime rate and the better the experience for the person who lives or works or plays there. And so if I were in Jim's shoes and I was running a venue and I knew that I was going to have, 100 or 200 apartments and some offices and retail built beside me, and that the profile of that person is going to be a millennial who's going to want that experience to go to a show or go out to dinner or go to the boutiques, then that's a win-win-win for everybody. So I would say to you that it's a positive thing. And having the availability of the parking garage right there, you keep in mind that those parking lots were buildings.
That's right.
And so they were originally built as and they were never parking lots. So the city of Salisbury is now finally taking that third step of, we took ownership of the condemned buildings, we demolished them and made them into parking lots. And now the third step is redevelopment. And so after decades of them being parking lots, it's now time to take that third step.
Brett, why do you think it's taken so long? I mean, I've been here 10 years and I've seen lots of conflict, obviously, just within that period. But obviously, this stretches back further.
Well, go back 10 years and just look at this past decade. We've had more ups and downs in this past 10 years than, in my real estate career, I've had probably the best education money could buy. And I've made it through this recession. And the reason that I believe that it hasn't really honestly gotten started is because we were consistently going for that grand slam. And now we've gotten a couple runs in, and we've gotten the attention of our major institutions in and around Wicomico, and they're saying that, hey, we want to invest in our downtown. And so once they do, if you saw the excitement potentially with the potential of a medical school with the Daily Times building, talk about that. That's huge. That's right in downtown, and PRMC at 3,000 employees, right at the doorstep of this.
Because it's one of the other things, and I'm going to wrap this up, but one of the other things that struck me, and as particularly as I watched, it kind of looked at some of the history of downtown, is that one of the things that happened was that they ran Route 50, they widened it and ran it through. And my understanding, the idea was that people would get off Route 50 going to whatever it is, and they go off to visit things in downtown Salisbury. And as a matter of fact, I stood with somebody at that site where the off ramp is, and we kind of stood there for about 15 minutes chatting about downtown, and nobody got off.
Mm-hmm.
Is it your idea that people will be planning on coming to the downtown area rather than driving through and saying, "Oh, gee, why don't we stop by?"
Look at. This is the reason that Headquarters Live has the potential. It's an experiment to be an anchor, and with the venue that we've set up is quite honestly first class in many ways, and we have the ability to with Jim's relationships with the entertainment, the talent, and also with the sticks and bricks, the mortar, that those people are going to want to come back here. And that is a regional play. That is not a local thing. I mean, so in order to support this, we're talking 60, 90 miles out, where you're going to have a person coming from Talbot County, you're going to have a person coming from Sussex County, and potentially driving up hotel rooms, and so there's a good mix of that, and Route 50 would play an integral part in having the accessibility to Route 50 and Route 13.
So, Jim, what kind of acts are we looking forward to? Any names are coming up that you can mention? Or?
The first tribute act that we've booked is January 30th this month is Bruce in the USA. It's a Bruce Springsteen tribute show. To make Brad's point, the ticket requests we're already getting for that show are people from Baltimore, people from Wilmington, people from D.C., as far as D.C. coming to see that show. That show in Baltimore is $35 a ticket. We're going to be somewhere $8, $10. So I think, we're going to be drawing people from at least that type 90 minutes away, 90 miles away. But we're going to be teaming up with some folks from Richmond, Virginia, and routing shows from Richmond through here. They have extensive relationships and experiences similar to the agents that I've dealt with all my career. So you're going to see a variety of things, and a lot of things that are being played on this radio station in the from the XPN partnership that you have. So it's going to be a wide range of things. There's things that are going to appeal to university students because we have the ability to do all age shows. And then we have, obviously the ability to do 21 up shows. So it's going to appeal to a wide audience.
By the way, but this also seems a bit more intimate as a venue, as opposed to, say, I've gone, for instance, to the Civic Center, which is a huge, gigantic thing, and you sort of sit there, and maybe some of it is filled, or even if it's all of it's filled. This sounds like the acts will be a little more intimate than
as one of those things that if everybody says to me that said they saw Dave Matthews at the Stone Balloon or the Bottle and Cork actually were there would have been 3,000 people. But Dave Matthews played those clubs. The Goo Goo Dolls played both those clubs. Hootie and the Blowfish played both those clubs. And that's the type of acts you're going to see. You're going to see acts that are on their way up, and then you're going to see acts that are coming back down. Right. That's who fits in this type of venue.
We've been speaking with Jim Bowerly and Brad Gillis, and they are partners in this venture to revitalize downtown through an event or a site called Headquarters Live, which will, of course, they hope to attract a lot of great musical acts, and in the process, perhaps move the downtown area forward in terms of revitalization. Appreciate both of you taking the time to talk with us.
Thanks for having us.
This has been Delmarva Today. I'm Don Rush, and thanks for listening.
This has been Delmarva Today, a production of Delmarva Public Radio. Chris Rank produces and is our audio engineer. Don Rush is your host. For podcasts, visit our website, delmarvapublicradio.net, or subscribe to the Delmarva Today podcast in iTunes. Delmarva Today can now be seen on PAC 14. To view the schedule, visit the Daily Times or visit pac14.org.